Okay, I appreciate the turnout tonight. It'll make it easier to conduct our election.
Or not.
We got 16 people here, and we got about 30. So the first item of business is to elect our two incoming officers who will be here for 2 years starting January of next year. President and secretary are to be filled. Tom Wenzel, our current secretary, has agreed to serve another term. Is there anybody else who would be interested in being secretary? I thought not. Okay, so we have to do it, I guess, by some kind of order. So, Tom's the nominee. I second his nomination. I think I can do that. Johnny, you got to keep me straight here. I didn't see there. This is why I want to name this guy the club parliamentarian.
You're only the breaker of ties.
I'm sorry?
If there's a tie vote, you only break the tie vote.
I'll second it.
Okay, is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
All right.
He's not trustworthy.
It's been moved and seconded that Tom Wenzel be elected to serve as secretary for 25-26. Can I see a show of hands of those who are supportive of it? All right. Tom, you're the former and current secretary.
Thank you, Tom.
It's good to have that experience. He's moved us along from when I had it. The second position is, and it gets a little bit complicated. We have a person who is currently our vice president, Mr. John Ziegler. Oh, there you are. Going by the bylaws, it is permissible for a current officer to resign his position. And the board has to approve it. Our board met a week ago yesterday, and we agreed to accept his resignation. That makes him kind of a free agent. And lo and behold, he has agreed to serve as president. And so, again, I will move that we accept, I'm sorry, we have to have, is anybody else interested in being president?
John, who do you have to pardon?
Okay.
You, Mike, I pardon you.
I'll second that.
Okay, we got another second here. Show of hands for those in favor of John Ziegler being your club president for the next 2 years. This takes over in January. This is my last hurrah.
Barry, I read the bylaws and you could take the vice presidency. Second.
Oh, I forgot to mention that. The board also, or the directors, or executive committee, also, we asked Bill Heaps if he would finish out the term. The bylaws do allow it to be unfilled, but that's not a good situation. We want to have 4 people on the board. We talked to Bill about being our vice president for the balance of the term, which will, next year this time, that position will be open. And he can run for it if he hasn't been burned out by then. We're set. So anyhow, that doesn't require a vote. It's it was approved by the directors that Bill be the vice president.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you, Bill.
Thanks, Bill.
And he's going to need our help with, of course, the key thing that, besides operating the computer, The key thing by the bylaws that the vice president is responsible for is finding demonstrators and demonstrations. We're going to help that along a little bit by we're trying to get either 3 or 4 professional IRDs in the calendar year. I've talked to several and found out how much they charge, and that gets me to our next point, and that is,
Excuse me. Do you want to say what an IRD is?
oh, I'm sorry.
Because I didn't know when you told me.
Okay. It stands for Interactive Remote Demonstration. They came about kind of toward the tail end of COVID. Before that, you could pay a demonstrator, and basically they would play a video that was available on YouTube, but with pausing and narration and tell you what you're about to see, but it was all a canned presentation. And it was done pretty much with 2 cameras, one kind of like right here, and everything was fixed, and you seldom actually saw the demonstrator. You're seeing his hands on the recording. If you've watched wood turning videos on YouTube, you're mainly seeing somebody's hands, unless they're a showboat. Then you're seeing their face. Well, anyhow, they began with the idea of, I think it started with one of the symposia, Louisville, I think, where you could get a virtual ticket, and I was never, I signed up for it, but I never did I didn't know how to call in with any question you'd have, and I think there were like 600 people in the online audience, and so I was just content to sit and watch and hope somebody else would have the question that I wanted to ask. But it's just like they're here. They're on the monitor, and they send out a link that the club will pass on to its members. And so any of our club members, including those who are members here and at Susquehanna, and those who are remote members in Canada and Maryland, Delaware, wherever, they are included as dues-paying members in good standing to get to view the IRD, Interactive Remote Demonstration. The demonstrators charge those that are not terribly well known somewhere around $3.25 to $3.50 for a 1.5 to 2 hour presentation. And there are different bells and whistles. Some of them, the thing they turn during the demonstration will be mailed to the club to be auctioned off as a fundraiser. But in general, they're going to give us 1.5 to 2 hours. In the case of Lyle Jameson, most of you here heard of Lyle Jameson. He's the guy who makes himself that hollowing rig that I had up here on the lathe. He's also an excellent demonstrator, and he has his own rules, and he's at the high end of what it costs, and he's like $450. And so what the executive committee has decided was, number one, the dues for next year will be increased from $30 to $35. And if those of you who were around for a while can recall, 4 years ago they were $35, and they were reduced just because of during COVID we didn't have much to offer. And it was basically a couple of guys gathering and watching at home on TV, I think we had like 4 people here in the clubhouse. Anyhow, because we weren't offering much, we lowered the rates to $30. But now to fund these IRDs, we're looking at a choice of, do we tell club members, okay, it's going to cost you $10 a head, or $5 a head, or whatever. First of all, the mechanics of keeping a checklist of who paid and who didn't pay, and then sending out to just those people the link that we receive from the demonstrator, and make sure they don't give it to anybody or get a whole group of turners around and undercut the situation. The demonstrators that I've talked to have all been consistent with, I don't care how you work it, whether the club pays or the individuals pay, but it's going to be one check that they get. And so it's either a matter of collating a bunch of checks or just having the club fund it. And I figure for an average of, say, $400 per IRD, we're looking at $1,200 for the year to $1,600 for the year. Increasing our dues by $5 will generate an extra right around $500. And so the club will be out some money, but what you're paying your dues for is to see demonstrations. By and large, those demonstrations will not be in addition to the month's demonstration. They will be the month's demonstration. Lyle Jamison is a little different. He doesn't want to demonstrate during club hours. He wants to demonstrate like on a Saturday afternoon. And the entire audience would be basically sitting at home in a recliner watching it. And I guess you have to negotiate how you ask your questions there. I want to have, it won't be my choice next year, but my idea was that the IRD, where possible, would be during the club at the beginning of or right after a short business meeting, just as if it were the demonstrator. So, questions about the IRDs?
You also want to, and we also discussed as an executive group that we're also, now if you look back, we have, 6 lathes. They're pretty much all set up with the equipment we've been buying, the TV studio. There's a lot of value added to the $5 increase in the dues as well. Besides, we're not doing it totally to fund the IRDs.
Correct, and there will be attempts at fundraisers throughout the year. And we're also going to, sooner or later, have to replace the computer we have here. Was bought, reconditioned 4 years ago. And so it's about due to fail, hopefully not, but more than likely it would be during a meeting here. But we are looking at having to get a new computer in the very near future. So we have a lot of expenses. We're not just charging you more money and spending it on executive committee parties. Although that was a pretty good idea I had.
All right, just a comment on the IRDs. I really like the idea, and I think whenever possible, we should try to be able to broadcast it from here as well. Because I'd much rather come here and watch it with other Woodturners, because I'm not going to ask the same question as Mike's going to ask or Rick's going to ask. So I like the idea of being able to sit in a group here and watch it. So anytime we can do that, I appreciate that.
That was the genesis of when I wrote an open letter with the leadership, AAW leadership newsletter. I said about my first idea was find another club that meets at the same time and we could split it 50-50. Then Tom White contacted me and said, well, Susquehanna would like to go in with us, so their club would take 50%. So that, I forgot about that. That cuts the cost to our club down to about $800 at the outside for 4 demonstrations.
I was saying have it here on Saturday or something.
Yeah.
That would be
Here
great.
one night, so we can't have it on club night.
Yeah, and I think it's I would find it useful to have the questions being asked by the person next to me. So it may have to be amplified, it may have to be
Reiterate.
secondary question, whatever. And I think as many of our members as we could have here, but those who can't make it or choose not to make it can watch it from their home. Everybody in the club roster would get the login credentials. The demonstrators, so far as I've experienced, do not want logins through our regular
Meeting notes.
connection.
Yeah.
They want to send out their connection, and that's what I will forward, or that's what will get forwarded to the members and forwarded to Susquehanna. And it can be viewed like that.
Couple questions, Barry. The first is, didn't you say there's a limit to the number of participants on Zoom for these? Is it
I
99?
believe 90 or 99.
Yeah, that depends. If they're doing this professionally, you're gonna have the professional version,
Right.
and then they can bump it up if they see, because it's, standard license is, I think, 100 or 99.
Right.
But if they're gonna be, if they have a room more than that, they just bump it up for the day, kind of thing, that they can pay extra on that.
And it's a detail, but if, in other words, just pretend, we have, let's say, 100 members, and Susquehanna, I don't know how many they have. Is it possible that not everybody actually can get into the Zoom?
In my dream.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a good problem to have.
I don't imagine encountering that problem, but I guess depending on the demonstrator. Now again,
Barry, can I say something?
Mike wants to say something.
Mike Peace.
Mike,
Yeah, I'm fairly familiar with IRD since I've given over 75 of them. I've never had a situation where we had more than 99 people. And that's the clubs throughout the U.S., Canada, and Great Britain.
okay, thank you.
So the other question is there a certain period of time that, or any time, that the video will be available to club members to watch after the demonstration?
Everybody I dealt with, I've only talked to one, actually, speaking to them, that was Lyle
Right.
Jameson. But everybody else that responded by email and back and forth all said either 30 days or 60 days after the presentation, it'll be available. And I don't think on open access on YouTube. Do you know how that works, Mike?
Well, it depends on the individual, but most of them I've seen allow the club to put it on their YouTube with the understanding they'll remove it. It hasn't. That puts the burden on the club to remove it. In some instances, they will store it somewhere and give a link. Depends on the demonstrator. A lot of demonstrators says no, it's live theater. You need to be there to watch, and they don't allow recording, and they don't want to go the trouble of trying to record and handle those logistics. So it's all up to the demonstrator.
Yeah, I know they don't allow recording, but the ones I talked to all do record, except there is a gentleman from Bucks County, Michael Keys. Some of you may have seen him at the symposium. Extremely talented, and he has agreed to either do an IRD or come here. And I think he's like 3.5 or 375, and I think he said like up to 3 hours or something. So most of his work is in the detail in carving and embellishing and burning and such. He's an excellent turner, but I think he's really been specializing lately in carving and finishing. Lyle Jameson said he's had over 400. And I get Lyle Jameson's emails and have for a couple years, and I think Cindy Drozda and I think 2 other well-known turners turn kind of under his umbrella that Jameson will send out the invitation and you have to pay per person. And it does, since it's a nationwide in Canada and I guess everywhere, it's a live IRD, and he said he's had 400 on the screen. So for some demonstrators, obviously 99 is not a limit. Other questions? I passed on the names and emails and such of the folks I've talked to Bill. I'm going to be working with him this coming year on trying to brainstorm some ideas and get your all's input on what you'd like to see. The AAW website. Let me see a show of hands. How many people here are members of AAW? Great. On their website, you can search for demonstrators, but unless you have a demonstrator's name in mind and all you're looking for is his or her contact, or unless you know what is it you want to see turned. You can't just say, well, let me peruse this basket of demonstrators and, oh, here's one that sounds interesting. I wish you could do that, but you can't. And quite often they have incomplete information, dead links for websites, and so it's kind of a trial and error thing, but I have identified about 8 people that can demonstrate. And if we don't mind, or if the demonstrator doesn't mind the time difference, there's a whole bunch in Ireland and England. I don't think it'd be reasonable to expect them to stay up until 2 o'clock in the morning or something to do an IRD, but I don't know that.
But they could do a Saturday morning IRD.
Right, if they do it like Lyle Jamieson wants to do it, just let them pick the time or give us a time that it wouldn't be during a meeting. And again, you can come here to watch it or watch it from your home. But there's a whole, England is kind of like Australia with just crawling with demonstrators or professionals.
Yeah. May I interrupt for a moment? On Worldwide Woodturners, which is on Wednesday night, we often have people who are from the UK. Paul Hannaby, I believe, and a gentleman from Ireland as well. And it does get very late for them, or very early, depending on point of view. But they do occasionally come in and do demonstrations for us.
Yeah, I've visited the Worldwide Woodturners website to find demonstrators, and I'll bet they had them like in a table, and I'll bet all but 3 were UK or Ireland. So it's something to consider. I don't know how you work it with paying them in the value-added tax or however that works when it's personal service like that. But this year, as in past years, our club has made a donation to a charity of Kyle Kaufman's choice. And he, for a couple of years, has designated CrossNet Ministries, and our club donates $1,200, which is a bargain considering we don't pay Kyle or the Kaufman Kitchens or Ben on the side one nickel for lights, internet, heat, power, regular power. We live here rent-free. Let's hope that can continue for a long, long time. But as long as it is continuing, we want to acknowledge Kyle's support by supporting this charity. Aren't they based in New Holland?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, when we started in here, we were talking about, well, how long do you think we can stay in here? And that was a question that was up in the air. Who knows?
I recall your exact answer.
25 years.
At least 5 years.
That was the answer. And where are we at now?
This is the 5th year.
So January 1st, we're out.
And I don't.
That's why you don't want to be the president anymore.
But
I'll help in the move.
I don't see any in the future. I mean, he's growing, But he also bought another company up in RM Cabinetry up in Campbelltown.
And they have their own facility?
They have their own facilities, so it's, the two of these places are working together. And he doesn't really, I can't see in the in the proceeding future that he's gonna be using this space up here.
Well, I hope the whole club joins me in wishing Kyle success, but not too much success. But we do know what a great thing we have here.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he really likes it that he's contributing to our success here.
You didn't do any arm twisting there?
I don't know, well, no, I won't say that. He's on his own.
But he still follows from when you were the daddy and he was the little kid.
Yeah.
Wants to make you happy. And you want to make us happy, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay, treasurer's report. And also, if you want to just mention about where things stand with PayPal.
Yeah. All right. So when I looked up the balance before I came to the meeting, we had 3344. But we had expenses for the donation at 1,200. Plus, I know coming up soon we'll have the internet and insurance and
Insurance, 200.
other stuff, and that all comes due in January. That's when I wrote the checks out last year. I think it was in January. And I think there's something else that comes due. I can't remember what it is now. It's
Zoom license?
Zoom license, yeah.
Probably.
There's expenses coming up, but we're in good shape at the moment. I did finally get a PayPal set up for the club. So tomorrow I will be sending an email out to all the current members, and that'll have my mailing address if you want to send me a check, or it'll have a PayPal link, and then I just have to figure out how to do the PayPal thing from PayPal to the club's bank account, because I've never used PayPal. So that's where I'm at with that.
Is that for the membership dues?
Yeah, for the membership. So that's what I have, I think.
But you'll accept cash and checks tonight?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, if you have the dues, thank you. If you have the dues cash on you tonight and you haven't paid yet, you can get in under the $30 rate for next year.
Do we want to extend that through the end of the week after I send the email out for the folks that are on the Zoom to utilize PayPal? Or to the middle of the month or whatever?
Yeah, 15th.
Why don't you just say to the 10th of December?
Okay.
Date that'll live in it.
Yeah.
Get your dues in as soon as you can, $30, and then they're gonna be going up for next year. This Saturday, we're gonna have a work party. Don't make too much out of the word party.
Or work.
This is really a party in the sense of the Jamestown settlers were a party. They didn't have a party. Hopefully we won't have blizzard conditions here. But we want to primarily clean up the wood situation. And a real hindrance to buying wood is a lot of people, most of you, I guess, may not have a bandsaw or a convenient means of rendering a round log into 2 bowl halves. So I'm going to bring up an electric chainsaw, and we're going to be chainsawing those into manageable pieces. So they can sell more easily and we can have a better turnover on wood. It was a pretty nice additional income to our operating fund last year. And we definitely get them. They're kind of crowding the floor right now. And we also have some things here. One of the reasons why I was setting up that Halloween thing was I never knew if Doug gave us the entire Halloween rig or just a component of it. So I just checked it out. It is complete except for the laser on the end for Halloween. But if anybody can use I don't think it's a 10-inch, I think it's smaller than that, but it's a genuine antique, made in Lancaster, DeWalt, cast iron, radial arm saw. It's an out-the-door special. It costs you nothing. I think there's 2 blades there with it. I know it's heavy as a brick. I helped carry it in here 4 years ago. But it operates, all of its functions are there. It's just that it's only either a 7 or an 8-inch, and it's not a 10-inch saw.
Is everything together on it? We could just take it down to the blue ball machine and have them sell it for us.
Have them what?
Have them sell it.
It appears everything.
Blue ball machine. Yeah. They would sell it for us.
Do they just house stuff on retainer?
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's not all that heavy. It's like about 80 pounds, I'm guessing. It's unwieldy, but we can get it there, and if they'll take it and keep it while they offer it for sale, and then we get like 75% or...
Yeah, I'm not sure. I took stuff down already. Yeah, you have to watch it. I mean, yeah, they're... I had to go back a couple years later and say, hey, do you remember that lathe I had here to sell? Man, I don't know.
I get in there a couple times a year.
But they're on it. I mean, yeah, they're kind of a little bit the way they are.
They got a second floor that's jam-packed with stuff.
Oh, yeah. It's like a pawn shop.
They got the 3rd floor too. Have you been up there?
It's
crazy.
Yeah.
My goal is to get it out of here, whether we get money for it or not. When we first acquired it, it was a gentleman who was a member, I think, for 1 year. And I'm not really sure if it was to get us to take the saw off his hand. But anyhow, he didn't want it when he left. I put it on Craigslist 3 years ago. And I think I had $50 on it. And I didn't get a call. They just don't appreciate antique cast iron. Cast iron is appreciated, but 7-inch is not. But it does work fine. But when you get stuff that we are not using,
Looks like it's just as much money as Beartown metal recycling.
Yeah, you could.
You just take it up to Beartown and go, weigh it, give me the money, and you're done. That'd be just as.
what do they do about the motor?
I mean, everything.
Yeah.
They take it
They
apart.
take it
They
all.
scrap it.
They scrap everything.
The same one down in Lancaster, the same shop in Lancaster.
Yeah, so it was the same at Ephrata. You just take it up there and they'll just weigh it and give you cash money right there. That'd be the quickest.
And then they tear it apart and recycle it
Yeah.
accordingly.
Otherwise, if you take it to Blue Ball, like you said,
To move from ideas to execution, is anybody here willing to transport it?
I mean,
maybe
somebody wants to help get it down.
Yeah.
I don't know where to go, but
Saturday,
Make it part of
like
the
your
work
party
party.
or something.
can,
You can take
John,
it, put it in the truck.
Do you know
and
where an ABG is or Light Catholic is?
I don't know where almost anything is.
All right, well,
We
the
can
10th
throw
of
it
a
in the
mile
back
from
of one of
Lancaster
my
Catholic
trucks.
High School is the one in Lancaster.
Yeah, you take it up there.
Okay,
Any of them.
Rick, do you want to
Matt, if you'd still be willing
work on
to
that? Rick and I will work on that.
work on the either tool committee or for you as the tool committee. We do have chucks for each lathe. We don't have, other than the default number 2 jaws, we have no other jaws, or I think they all have woodworms. Yep. I'm not sure. But there are, whether we have one for each lathe or like a cabinet deposit for a collection of those things. But we need more than just the number 2 jaws. And there's also some basic tools. I can't think right now that on the open shop, the number of times somebody has said, hey, do we have I think like tape measures? Just for something as simple as measuring up to the center, so you can compare it to another lathe on how high it is, and if one feels like, oh, this was a sweet spot for operating height, and it'd be nice to have a tape measure around. What's the story on Easy Wood?
The last communication that I've seen.
Sorry?
David said he could do it in January. I told him it's 7 to 9, so, that's when our meeting is. He wanted to know, thank you. He wants to know what we want him to turn. And I told him that we would poll the group tonight to see what people think we should ask him to turn using Easy Wood carbide tools.
About, in fact, like the second meeting of this club I attended down at Thaddeus Stevens, there was a guy from Easy Wood. You all familiar with Easy Wood?
Yeah.
Yep.
Carbides. They make only carbide tools. They make a pretty broad range. Small ones for turning pens and mainly for mini lathe, and then they have full-size ones. Swan neck, kind of hollower, but everything is carbide. And for the January demonstration, we were sitting open, and a gentleman who works for Easy Wood sent out an email for any club that wanted to compete for a free demonstration. And I filled out the stuff for it, but apparently there were several hundred clubs that were competing for a free demonstration by that person. Rick Urban, I think was his name. And so we didn't get that, but he put us in contact with a gentleman who will come to the club, demonstrate the line of tools, turn whatever it is we would like to have him turn. I think a chalice or something that, not a deep hollow vessel, but like a chalice or a box or something, so you get into hollowing and you can see how the tool cuts on end grain and cross grain, not tools cut on end grain and cross grain. And it doesn't require that the club endorse Easy Wood or put up banners or anything. It's just, they're here, they demonstrate, and it goes away.
It's nice to have
Like a bowl or whatever, with the edges that come in.
Reflex.
You have to cut out, because that's where those tools are really
Yeah,
excellent.
In other words, undercut.
A hollow form of some kind. Yeah.
So a chalice is interesting because you could undercut the goblet.
Yeah, a goblet.
You could undercut it, plus you have spindle, and you can put decoration on the spindle, right? So you might get like more, a lot of different cuts with it. I thought about a hollow form, but that seems too involved and too, it's not one-dimensional, but it doesn't show the.
Like a goblet type thing.
Yeah.
Well, you're not gonna see the actual cutting of
Oh, yeah.
forms.
Right. Yeah.
I like the goblet idea.
There's a hole.
And I don't believe I may be wrong, but I don't believe they use a carbide that is greater than some other party's carbide, or the geometry of the tool is anything special. It's just that they do have pretty much a complete solution. Randy, you use Easy Wood, don't you?
I do have a couple of carbide tools, but some of mine are actually homemade. So I do have one or two of them. I have the detailer, and I also got one from Amazon that has a point on it. And I have used carbide tools because I use them to turn my synthetic pens. But other than that, I use mostly high-speed steel for wood.
Okay. I know a lot of pen turners do. They are a chief audience for Easy Wood. They make a whole line of tools that are about that long, and they're all for operating within like 2 inches of center line. Anyhow, you can expect that to be our demonstration in January.
So you're okay with me getting back to David and saying
Oh.
we'd like a goblet with an enclosed form and some decoration
Yeah,
on the stem.
I would personally want to see end grain, side grain,
Yep.
and hollowing.
Yep.
Um,
I think that's a good choice.
I'd like to see it turn alabaster.
What's that, Angela?
I'd like to see him turn alabaster with that. Alabaster. Yeah.
Yeah.
So stone.
Or ivory.
Well, I'm not giving up any ivory, but I'll give up some alabaster.
Well,
Would
I
you
guess
like
if
an
the-
alabaster chalice?
we don't want to present them with both geometry and materials challenge.
Just my 2 cents.
And I think the whole club would appreciate seeing you turn alabaster here sometime.
No problem.
All right.
There you go, Bill.
Keep that in mind, Bill.
Keep it coming. Keep it coming.
Final thing before we do have the work party this Saturday, 9 till, it might not last the entire time, but it will be splitting the wood. We don't want to have an a gas-powered chainsaw running in here. Some of the pieces earlier I ran the bandsaw up all the way, and it will handle 12 inches. I guess as long as you don't feed real aggressively and don't feed it like this, because my experience is it makes fibers that are as long as the piece is tall, and you quickly, the vacuum can't extract it. And all of a sudden you have the bottom wheel full of a lot of threads. And so cutting it on the bandsaw into 2 halves, cut it this way. And making sure you cut on the center, not off center. You don't want to have it grab and destroy the blade that Angelo donated to us.
Would you split the logs in half with the chainsaw before cutting them on the bandsaw?
Yeah, I think so.
You mean just as a starter line, or?
Yeah.
Well, we could put a flat with the chainsaw.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
That way you don't have to worry
That
about
way you don't have to worry about standing it on end.
Right.
I have just because I'm always screwing around with gimmicks, the tie plates that like when you buy joist metal plate about that big they've been perforated and the perforations protrude and there's like 1,000 of these teeth. Screwed a pair of those to two paddles, and you just put them on the block of wood any way you're cutting it, and
Clear.
right, and you just go through.
It's good on the heartwood.
Yeah, it doesn't rotate on you.
This is the opposite. It gives you a heart attack.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going to bring an electric chainsaw up here and we can flatten them off, and that'll also subtract 1 inch of the height to bandsaw it. Some will be getting cut to length a little bit, and so I'll go ahead and bring some anchor seal up here to recoat the ends or recoat them for the first time if they haven't been coated.
And what do we do with all of the cutoffs? Is there a dumpster outside, or
Yeah.
we gotta take them away?
No, you can put it out in the dumpster.
We'll take them out in that big rollaway.
Okay.
I brought this afternoon, a whole bunch of burlap bags from the coffee beans that you can use to, if somebody wants wood or something, throw it in there and take it along.
What kind of bags?
Burlap.
Oh,
They're over in that green.
I saw burlap bags, and
Yeah.
I'm wondering, what are these for?
We throw them away by
Oh, coffee
hundreds.
beans.
Yeah.
Okay,
I do fires every night, so I'll take the scrap.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm sorry?
I do fires all the time, so I'll take the scrap.
Well, I just hauled about, I have a little pickup truck and it was down where the tires were really kind of ovaled out. I was bandsawing all the wood I've been accumulating into, in half and then in rounds and sealing it up. And I had all these, the four corners, and some that when you open them up, they aren't very desirable. And so I had a whole pickup truck load, and I called the compost facility first to make sure they would take it. As long as it's not pressure treated, they'll take it. So I was,
Well, you could drop, it's my compost. You can bring it to
Oh.
my house and
now this is, they have that big tub grinder up there that you can drop in a whole tree stump. It'll grind it up.
Yeah.
The open shop will be Saturday after next. It's always the second Saturday of the month, and we just happen to be early with our meeting this time. Final thing, I don't know how many of you opened the attachment, but with the email that Tom sent out last week was a copy of the bylaws with the proposed changes. The bylaws require that we present the bylaw changes in two successive, actually I don't think it says successive, in two regular meetings, and it doesn't say whether we have to wait until the third meeting to vote or the second meeting. But we will be sending out proxies for people who can't make it to send an email vote in favor of or opposed to the bylaw changes, because by the current bylaws, we do have to have 51% of the members, which, we have 105 members in Canada and New York and England, and I don't see them taking time out of their day to cast a vote here. So I want to catch them with a proxy vote so we can get beyond that threshold to make the change. You can't change the bylaws to change the bylaws. At a quick glance, inconsequential. The first change is to bring it consistent with what the AAW puts out in their model, and that is that halfway through the year, we'll prorate the dues. So if you join after July, or during July, whatever, from then on, it'll only cost you, I guess we'd do $18 since we have an odd number. But your dues goes in half at the halfway point in the year. Pretty innocuous change, I think. We already casually lowered the rate for the last part of the year. Changing the definition of quorum. It used to read, the presence in person or by proxy of 51% of the members of the chapter entitled to vote. That would be like 50-some people. And in the past, we have had to postpone a vote to the following month and remind people. And then that's when we started the proxy thing. But we want to change that so that it's 25% of the members. And basically, it'll be those who show up here monthly and that are online monthly will satisfy the 25%, because it pretty much is literally about 25 people total that have to vote.
Change that to 50% of members present at the meeting.
Yeah, that's really what it should say.
Yeah.
Well, what is being proposed is consistent with the AAW model language.
Okay.
AEW model doesn't distinguish, they don't put the words in person.
It says 25%.
What the,
25% of membership.
what the wording, the proposed wording will be the presence in person, electronically, or by proxy of 25% of the members. The vote will be recorded electronically, just as all the business meetings are recorded. Members are entitled to vote only if current dues have been paid. That's always been a proviso. Anyhow, if you would, this is purely my draft. It has been looked at by the other executive committee people with a few comments that I have incorporated, but if you want to go through it, I just don't want to make up a lot of stuff that goes in there. The AEW model actually assumes you're a 501c3 club, which is you pay taxes and you have an income aside from your direct wood turning stream, membership stream. And there's all kind of things on the financial requirements of all the members and everything. And it refers to a board of directors, which we don't have. It's burdened up to about 9 pages of bylaws. And most of it pertains to the C3 organization. We're a C7 social club organization. The definition of proxies has been redone. It used to say every member of the chapter entitled to vote at any regular meeting may vote in proxy, and that part hasn't changed. But it went on to say about how they had to say how long their proxy was valid for. We're changing it so that basically it's a proxy vote just for the matter at hand. In this case, it would be a proxy just to approve the bylaws. It wouldn't be like a calendar, like you have my proxy for the first half of 2025. There's an item that Tom the secretary and I both had a problem with. I had a problem with it before, and that is the current bylaws requires that the secretary makes minutes or distributes minutes of the executive committee meeting to all the members. Not trying to keep stuff secret, but frankly, you have to have the freedom to discuss stuff, and only what you finally decide is, in my estimation, is what needs to be conveyed to the members. So if we get, for example, if we get talking about raising the rate, and at one point we talk about $45 or $40 or something, to go ahead and report this out, or to report that, okay, here is somebody who is willing to serve as an officer. Somebody says, I have a problem with that because whatever. We don't really want to have that put out to everybody. There has to be a freedom of discussion for the 4 board members, executive committee, and not have it go forward as minutes to people. And if you're going to be honest, I think you'd admit that it'd be one more email you wouldn't read.
But you've also created a precedent in the last year or 2. You've never done that, and the club has acted perfectly well.
That's right. We have not heretofore been doing it, and it was only when Tom
read the minutes.
When we were looking at revising it, Tom pointed out, the bylaws say this, and we haven't been doing that. And from my estimation, nor do we want to.
Hey, Barry, Barry, I think it would be fair to ask that actionable items are reported and are made sure that they're reported either in the meeting to follow or in some form.
Well, in the minutes that Tom puts out, he pretty much captures
That pretty much
everything that
does
was
it, yeah.
Okay.
decided.
That's all I would be interested in.
When I send out the minutes, or the email, there's always like that agenda, and those are basically things that Barry brings to the meeting and we talk about, and that's
But I
pretty
mean,
much
if there's something that needs to be, action needs to be taken,
right.
rather than just seeing the agenda of the executive committee, I'd like to see the bullet underneath it that says, when we discuss this, no action required is X. Okay? I don't think that that's being as transparent as I think the club should get.
Could you suggest wording?
Sure.
That's where the problem comes down with, I can do an interpretation of what you just said, and somebody else will, no, that's not really what I meant.
Well, I mean, basically what it is I see the agenda, but I don't know what happened out of the agenda.
Right, so in project management speak, you're talking about minutes, which is kind of a detailed description of who said what, and what he's asking for is more of a summary, which is, here's what we talked about, here's what drove the decisions, here's what the decisions are. You don't have to put names or any of the sordid details there at all. So it's a summary, not a minutes.
So that would be like a paragraph appended to the meeting notice?
Yes, doesn't
It
even
could
have to be
be,
a paragraph, it could be a statement.
It could be a separate
Yeah,
section
exactly.
before the agenda,
Good.
just what we discussed. I mean, I take notes anyway, so I just add that in there.
It can be, whatever you want it to be, it just needs to, have some description that's shared with the group, what happened and what the outcomes are, I think.
Tom, can you propose wording for the next meeting?
Wording?
Wording, if we're gonna change this,
Oh, for the
I mean, if the
bylaw?
bylaw goes away,
Yeah.
but there's still something that people would like to have.
I'll have to read that again, and
I mean, like, Peter had a good point. We haven't seen anything for a year and we're fine. So if you want to keep it this way so we don't have to go to another meeting, then just leave it this way that you don't have to provide the detail. But maybe out of a courtesy, when you do the minutes for the meeting and you show the agenda, then that's just part of the normal process.
Okay, it does have to go, we're not having a vote tonight.
No, I know,
Oh,
but
okay.
if you make a change to that document, then you have to go through it twice.
It's gonna be, any subsequent changes will be getting sent out with the January meeting notice.
Right, but Barry, if we make a change to that proposal now, it will then have to go to the January and February meeting for discussion. We restart the clock.
It could be a do-loop.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't want that to happen. I want to keep it simple. But, an executive summary of the executive committee meeting
yeah, I can do that.
would be just.
Well, I heard you say bullet points, action items from the
Well, if something's actionable,
Yes.
just.
So what were the action items from the executive committee? That's all you're asking.
Exactly right.
And that pretty much becomes the agenda for this meeting, is the way it usually rolls out. I mean, the only thing that might be different would have been discussion of that tool sale. We talked about it, we decided not to do it, didn't appear on the agenda this month. But I could do an executive summary before our agenda.
Yeah,
It's not a
I don't
big
want you
deal.
to do any extra work. If you're already taking notes for it, pull out whatever is
Yeah.
appropriate.
Yeah, I
That's a
can do
good
that.
point, is like project management speak is.
I mean, they had it in there for a reason originally, for transparency.
Yeah.
So I have no problem with that.
Okay,
Appreciate it.
so that are the only changes that I was proposing and that we had discussed prior to this evening. So if any of you do want to go through it, Johnny, you in particular, he belonged to a number of different clubs with different purposes. I don't want to see glassware or ceramics wording put into here, but as far as making us like other clubs that are similar to us as far as size and functions we go by.
You can use those samples of possible wording that others have used.
Okay. And there is no, I mean, if it goes on months after months, it's not a big deal, other than it's a time consumer, and people who have given their proxy have to give their proxy again for the revised version.
Yeah, let's keep it as is.
There is that. All right. Anybody, I think somebody brought a show and tell. Rick, you brought a show and tell.
I got show and tell stuff.
Huh?
Cookies.
Okay, Barry, just a quick one out there. It's still going on, but I happened to stumble across a Black Friday sale for CBN wheels for $68, which in some cases is like $100 off.
Black
Okay?
Friday sale of what?
CBN wheels, the sharpening wheels.
Yeah.
Okay? And they were $68 on Amazon. Okay?
Made where?
It's the same one that I got from the symposium
Well,
3 years ago.
there are at least two ways they are made. In one case, I'll say the real cheap ones that you get that are made in China, it's an adhesive not unlike what glues sandpaper to paper that holds the CBN crystals on the aluminum, on the wheel. The other version is like an electroplated version, so that there's it's more fused to the aluminum. And not trying to.
No, I'll tell you. They said that the normal retail, well, now I'm looking at it, the normal retail is $159. Yeah.
Where's that? It's only $70.
Okay, well, we have two grinders here. One has CBN, one does not. And we have some members. I know Ron's not here tonight, but Ron prefers sharpening on aluminum oxide.
I think Mike was just wishing to make us aware.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the club getting.
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I have a 180 and I have the aluminum oxide. I picked up the 80 at basically half price. I will identify by the details because it's still inside of the Amazon packaging. I haven't even opened it. It showed up an hour before I left here. But they were, because I kind of looked around last Friday on Amazon, there were quite a few bits and pieces that, Woodturners could use. Especially
And that sale is still on?
Well, in some stores they are. Black Friday's been on since July in some stores. It's just, go out and look and see what you might be looking for.
Okay.
Plenty of the Easy Wood stuff is out there too.
If anybody would care for a pair of like new 6-inch CBN wheels, they're yours for free. Back when I first started turning, I bought a 6-inch grinder. I guess you could buy the grinder with the wheels for $20 off me, but I used it for a short while, and then I got in the club and I realized, if you're grinding on the side for a skew, it doesn't much matter, but when you go with the 6-inch diameter versus 8-inch diameter, it makes a real difference on the concavity of the grind. But if anybody would like a pair, let me know. I'll bring them in the next meeting. Show and tell. There's nobody out there with their hand up.
All right. So I brought a bag of goodies. So trying to use up a bunch of scrap stuff laying at my shop. So I made some tea light holders. Oh, another one somewhere. Oh yeah, there's another one. Just, gifts. Then I had a whole lot of cherry cutoffs from when I built cabinets for so I made a bunch of honey dippers just because. And then I also did some coffee scoops.
Like pipes.
Yeah, little pipes. Oh yeah.
No details, please.
So yeah, no, there's no screens in them. And then of course some snowmen. And then I also made some mason jar lids, a whole bunch of them. So I had a whole lot of little 4-inch scrap, 4.5-inch scrap cutoff stuff. Some poplar. What's that?
Mason lid inside. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
So just glue the ring inside, and then I didn't put the actual lid in. And pine, poplar, cherry, walnut. I had just a bunch of scrap stuff, so I just throw a bunch of that in there. What else did I have? Oh yeah, and a little bit of color. Just playing and having fun. Yeah, that's that stuff.
So is any of this for sale?
It will be.
Stocking stuff.
So, stocking stuffers and also like craft show stuff. So I figured I might as well start putting a little bit of a stockpile together. So
The Mason lid jar, that's pretty neat. I like
yeah, I just put it on the little jars, but it's a standard lid. So this will fit anything from these little half pints up to the quart, as long as it's a standard.
Are you epoxying the lid inside?
No, just a little bit of tacky glue. Just a ring of tacky glue around the edge, shove it in there, and it holds them in.
Yeah.
So,
If you do sell them, I recommend you show them on a quart jar
well, yeah.
and put
I've-
jar not included.
I put it on this because it fits in the bag. Yeah, so a bunch of these guys. There's a couple other designs I'm looking at playing with for the tea light stuff.
Are those bowl orientation or end grain?
It's bowl. It's side grain.
Okay.
And it got real interesting because these were all 1-inch or either 4/4 or 5/4 scraps. The 4/4 scraps were really interesting to try to figure out how to mount them. And on the bottom, I don't know if you can.
There we go.
On the bottom, you can see the little detail. Okay, I burned it in, but that's what I held it on by. So after I flattened it out, that's what I turned it, and so that's only a 1/16 of an inch, and just barely dented to grab it with my chuck, so I could turn it around and do the outside edge, and shape the outside, or the top side, whatever side that is. So that was fun. But yeah, no,
Fly off.
no, none of them flew off except for the one that split.
Did you have a tailstock up against that while you
No.
worked on it?
No, nope.
You gonna demonstrate that for build next year?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can.
There you go.
So there's one. It
Trying to
actually
help you,
has a
Bill.
little bit bigger.
Yeah, 2 down.
So those are those things.
Come on, guys.
Pipes.
Yep.
Third month.
I got the pipes, and none of them are the same because I hate to do the same thing. You know, I looked at watching some of the stuff on YouTube, and it's just the little bowl and then just a stick. Well, I don't like sticks, so I made all kinds of different shapes. Huh? No, they're not through. They're into the base. So, I didn't make the ones that you drill through.
It'd be a hard draw on that then.
Yeah. So then I had a big piece of, well, I have a whole big pile of holly. So I wanted to do, this is not what I set out to do. It was twice that size. And the shape was completely different. It was beautiful, kind of like a lidded vase kind of thing. Beautiful shape. And making one little cut and, whoops, the inside met the outside. Which then shrank the size of it, and then I had to redo the lid, and it still came out kind of cute. And
You say that's holly?
yeah, it's holly. But when I shrunk it down, this shape down here was really ugly, and I'm like, well, I'll just make a bunch of little bumps on it, and then it'll look at least a little bit more interesting.
Like a Michelin man.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but
What is the finish on that?
little Danish oil and then wax. So, and then the last thing I brought is this guy, which I just did this one Sunday, which is a off-center platter. And this is maple. And
How did you mount that?
Huh?
How did you mount it?
Worm drive, worm screw, whatever that thing's called. And just in the center to do the general outside, just like they showed us at the symposium. I forget the guy's name now, but he did the off-center thing. And then you move it over a centimeter, and then you get your off-center.
Is that chameleon paint or iridescent paint?
No, this is iridescent. India Inca is the base, and then the Josonia Gold iridescent. So, and my wife likes it because it's snake skin. So, but that was fun. So, and that just made
What does the bottom look like on that?
Oh, sorry. And my daughter, when I showed it to her, she's like, that's really cool because that makes a great baby feeding bowl. Because then you can hold on to it with your spoon, and it's got a real short one so you can just shovel it into the baby's mouth. So I'm like, ooh, that's a nice. Yeah. So, but yeah, that's what I brought. So.
How long did all those pieces take? Like were you working?
These guys take me about 15 minutes.
I like
to do
that.
these.
That's a nice design.
Yeah.
So, these guys are about 15 minutes. The honey dippers are 10, 15 minutes. Snowmen, yeah, it's.
So this is what you're doing while your transmission's getting fixed?
Yeah, exactly. It's just, the worst part with like these things is just cutting them out. Getting a bunch of blanks cut out. But the time on the lathe is 15 minutes. It doesn't take that long. It takes longer to figure out what kind of design I want to do than it does to do them. So they're fun. It's a good way to waste a couple hours, when I can't sleep at night. So, but yeah.
Nice.
Thank you, Rick. His eccentric or off-centered plate reminds me, y'all remember I guess it's been about 5 months ago, a woman from up in Harrisburg, Miriam Rosenwasser, came and talked about Ikebana, Ikebana, and she kind of dropped off the radar while she researching how to get the insert, the frog, the frog. Not the frog, no. Put the frog in, the thing that holds the water. Oh, yeah. The frog goes inside of it.
Oh, okay.
A little metal pot in this case.
I thought she was looking for the frogs, but okay.
So it can hold water. so it can hold water.
Right, it has to be able to hold water. And anyhow, she wasn't able to get the price down, but she re-engaged me with back and forth and convinced her of that it's, since it wouldn't be seen, putting a, what do you call it, a little bowl they put sauce in, ramekins. There's a whole bunch of ramekins on Amazon, and there are some that are like 1 ounce or 1.5 ounce ramekins that could sit in the thing entirely out of sight. I made one at home. I didn't bring it tonight because my frog didn't. I had ramekins around the house, and I ordered a pair of frogs. Frogs are called a flower frog. It's like a disc that has about 100 brass or stainless steel tines, very pointy tines, pretty close together, and there's a Japanese flower arranging art called ikebana. And you stick flowers and twigs in a particular pattern that has to have the right feng shui. That's Chinese, but anyhow, there's a Japanese schools of how to arrange twigs, flowers, and to the extent that you're using live flowers, it has to be in water. And it's a little tiny thing, but they were like $3 a piece or $4 a piece. And she was trying to get the price down there. She bought like 100 of them. Her original request to us was, could we support making 140 of these things? And I said, well, the club couldn't commit to anything. Individual members may well do it. She wants to do this as her late husband was a woodturner in the Harrisburg Club, and he was a corneal transplant doctor. And there is just as there are medical associations, medical survivor kind of groups for all kind of medical problems. There is a corneal transplant survivors group, and she wants to send these things out as, now that they can see, here's beauty in your world. And she puts a pretty fine line on what is acceptable. And so she was going to come tonight, but she got tied up, so she can either come next month or the month after and talk about this some more. And the eccentric, the off-center, some of those that I was seeing online, it's all been turned, but the opening and the cavity are off-center, in most cases, I think, to not remove a feature that you wanted to highlight, whether it was a knot or spalting or whatever. You don't want to put the hole on the center. So anyhow, she's going to be coming here, I think, in a couple months and talk to us about making them, and us and the Susquehanna Club. The approach that I'm taking, you can do it start to finish in half an hour or less. And if she will accept that method as being close enough to, authentic isn't the word she uses, the proper or whatever, that has to adhere to certain Japanese design concepts.
So the dimensions that were sent out, we shouldn't start working on them?
What now?
I don't know if you guys got them, but there were dimensions sent out for that. The 2-inch hole, certain depth, certain width of the diameter.
And that began a back and forth between, if you mean the one that just came out last week?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know who all it went to. I didn't get it. A number of us. And I told her then, that as a club, we can't commit, just like with wig stands, you get as many as you people make. You can't say, well, we're going to commit to 100 of them or 50 of them or some set number. But they are a clever thing to, if you're not responsible for paying for the flower frog and the pot that it goes in, that all you're out of pocket is whatever the wood cost, you were free wood, and you make these things and put a finish on them, and makes her happy and brings happiness into a bunch of people's world, I guess. So we'll be hearing about that, I think, in about 2 months.
What was the cost of the frog that she was trying to get them down to?
She has identified a source to get them down to a reasonable price. On Amazon, this is for a 1.78 inch unit,
right,
which is the size that is the maximum that will fit in some of these ramekins. I just ordered 2. I think they were $13 for the pair. Even what's the Asian Temu or TEMU?
Temu. Yes.
Yeah, they put out I put out a query on to Temu and other entities. And I've been haunted now with, they keep on sending me, now it's on sale. Now it's on a really big sale. And they're quoting prices like $1.70. Well, that's for one that's that big around. And they do have the one that is 1.8 inches available, but you're back up to $7. So I don't know where you're going to get them cheap, but she said she has a source that she's going to buy like 100 of them. But then there's still she had a metal pot identified, and they were too expensive. But it's something to look forward to. And with that, unless somebody has something, thank you for letting me be your president for 2 years and secretary for 4 years before that. We'll see how things go.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you.
I'll even leave the barrel and hammer here.